Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donohoe here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm joined by our news correspondent Pat O'Toole to discuss the results of a Irish Farmers Journal Red C poll of 1,000 farmers into voting behaviours ahead of next week's general election. Pat, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Pat, is it a usual case of farmers voting Fine Gael?
Farmers voting predominantly for Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. Fine Gael have over half the support of the farmers who are voting, and I think the first thing I pointed out is farmers are voting. The vast majority of farmers said that they were extremely likely to vote. The farming vote is sought after because they are such reliable voters. The profile has barely changed since the 2011 election, when Fine Gael got 60%, Fianna Fáil got 19%.
So Pat, just run me through the figures as they stand from your own Irish Farmers Journal Red C poll.
Okay, well we polled 1,000 farmers, demographically representative by location, by farm size, by farm type, by age.
And the margin of error?
3%. And Fine Gael are at 53%, Fianna Fáil are at 23%, Sinn Féin are in third place at 5%, Labour on 3%, and then Independents at 13%. Fine Gael will be relatively happy with that. I think they've dropped in the national polls 5%. This is a national poll, but it's a sectoral poll, and they will feel that they've shored up their farming base. They'll be relieved about that, maybe that it has stopped the rot of the last few days. In contrast, I think Fianna Fáil will be disappointed that at only 23%, they're at half their high from 2008, when they were at 46%, and that they are barely higher than in 2011, when they were about to leave office.
So now we see, and taking it from sectoral to national and comparing the two, but Fine Gael nationally are now closer to the meltdown of 2007 as they are to when they came into office in 2011. Yet the support amongst farmers went from 60 to 53. How much credence will a Fine Gael-led government under a significant amount of pressure nationally take from a poll such as this?
I think Fine Gael will be comforted by this, but I mean it's all to play for in terms of the national election. The other sectors of the electorate are quite volatile, and those red line issues, especially water charges, aren't really playing with farm families. And I think that's the main reason why the support is so solid for Fine Gael and so unmoved for Fianna Fáil. They're stuck on effectively their low base. When we look at the issues that farmers have stated as most important, support for farming and farmers was at 27%. There is a perception that the current government have prioritised farming. There's also a belief among farmers that farming effectively protected and saved the economy, and especially balance of payments during the low point through the last 7-8 years. The next one then was job creation, the economy, employment. Jobs in rural Ireland was important because there is that sense, and certainly the national polls are showing that there is that sense that the recovery is Dublin based and Dublin centred. Provision of public services at 16%, and I would imagine that when you talk about public services, it's not just health and education, but roads is a huge issue in rural Ireland. Most farm families are spending far more on tyres than they are on water services or even electricity. And then 12% for further tax cuts, abolishing the USC. Farmers, because they're on very low incomes, are not paying very high levels of tax, unfortunately. I think most farmers would rather be paying more tax and making more money.
And with regards to outgoing Agriculture Minister Simon Coveney, how did he perform with regards to the poll in this week's paper?
High approval rate, with less than 1 in 5 saying that he was performing badly, with 8% saying he was very poor, 10% saying he was not very good. In contrast, 47% said he was either excellent or good, with 35% saying he was adequate. So I think the Minister can be quite pleased with that. It's the kind of approval rating that no party leader has. I think that it's pretty solid across the various demographics, whether we break it by geography or farm type.
And with regard to the next Minister for Agriculture, I know we're a long way to go, still more than a week out from the next general election, but who did they want to see back?
Simon Coveney. Your question implies back, but absolutely Simon Coveney is getting almost half the farmers who were polled said they want to see Simon Coveney return to Ag House. A wide range of candidates were mentioned to them, and none of them gained significant support. Significantly, Eamon O'Cuive is obviously the second most popular candidate for Minister for Agriculture, but a significant proportion of Fianna Fáil supporters said Simon Coveney would be their choice of minister.
Is that a case of better the devil you know?
It could be that. It could be that a proportion of Fianna Fáil supporters don't believe Fianna Fáil will be in the next government, and of the available candidates who they think will be in government, they would rather Simon Coveney. And it could be that he certainly would be seen as having been strongly supportive of the dairy sector. I'd be interested to see the demographic breakdown of that. But ultimately, Eamon O'Cuive's support is regional, and I think that Eamon O'Cuive is a divisive figure.
And finally, and just looking back nationally at it, has Fine Gael slipped too badly in recent weeks, and recent days in fact even? And what your own opinion and analysis with regard to the formation of the next government?
While there are fluctuations poll to poll, day to day, Fine Gael are finding it very hard to break 30%. That means they're going to need the support of a significant number of deputies from outside Fine Gael to get them back into power. You're talking about 8 seats lost, 158 seats in the next Dáil. So Fine Gael are somehow going to have to find 79 seats to get back into power. They're going to fall way short of that on the current polls. They could be 25 seats short of it, and Labour won't be able to fill the gap. We're looking at either Fianna Fáil or a group of independents supporting the next government.
Thank you, Pat. For more on the Irish Farmers Journal Red Sea poll of 1,000 farmers, you can visit farmersjournal.ie or this week's Farmers Journal.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Every week we bring you voices from the campaign trail. This week I asked Fianna Fáil's leader Micheál Martin about the conditions for the €200 Suckler cow premium in his party's Promise manifesto.
€200 will be based on productivity, as in i.e. if a cow calves she gets 200, if she doesn't and she gets €200 anyway, which would drive up the inefficiencies of our beef sector as a whole.
Well, no, we've said €200 for the first 20 cows.
Regardless of
that's our commitment. Okay. And obviously, we had a long and very fruitful meeting yesterday with the IFA. We covered a wide range of issues. The Suckler representatives, in particular the beef side, are very, very concerned about the future, viability-wise, and I think the general perspective we have really is we've got to try and create a medium-term sustainable platform for farmers, and to try and get rid of the extreme cycles that's obviously is affecting the dairy now with the reduction and the beef as well.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
One issue voters are raising with canvassing candidates all around the country is rural crime. The Irish Farmers Journal digital editor Thomas Hubert met Michael Garrigan, a farmer who had his Jeep stolen on a busy calving night last weekend.
I got up on Saturday morning and my Jeep was gone there. I was up with a cow at 2:10 on early on Saturday morning there, and locked the Jeep and come in and locked the door, and got up around 8:20 Saturday morning, and the lock on the back door was busted and the keys of the Jeep were gone. And when I went out, the Jeep was gone, and sure, it was an awful shock, because the Jeep is a kind of the same as me dwelling house. Everything that I have on the farm is in it, and I'm at a total loss now without it. The neighbour up the road told me that he was up around 4:30 and he heard the Jeep going up the road and a van following it in about a minute after. So that's it now. That's what happened to me.
You said that the Jeep was as important as your house. What did you have in it that you lost? I
had actually everything in the Jeep. I had I had tags for sheep. I had tags for the taggers for the calves, and I had 4 bags of meal that I was just after purchasing, and the horn, or everything that revolves around the farm. I had a little pocket in it there with injections for medicine and that, and cards for identity cards for cattle, and book with all the records in it there of calvings and all that, and all that's gone.
Okay, big hassle to reorganise all that and get transport.
Yeah, actually the Jeep nearly wouldn't be as important as the stuff that was in it, It's massive. There's a massive amount of stuff in it. I had that Jeep for 3 years and I wouldn't think I ever cleaned it out, or it wasn't even washed. It wasn't the most attractive Jeep to lift,
But it was still targeted. It looks like somebody knew it was there and came for it specifically.
Someone definitely was watching it there, and sure there was 2 taken in the town there a couple of nights before out of the one place. There seemed to be targeting Toyota Land Cruisers and Hiluxes at the minute in the counties Meath, Louth, Cavan and Monaghan.
That was, the guards told you that when you reported it?
Yeah.
What about the guards around here? How easy is it to get support from them in those kind of cases?
Well, there's the Garda station in Old Castle, there's nearly never anyone there, maybe for every other day, maybe from 2 to 4, but that's it. The guards in Kells, in fairness to them, they were down here in about 30 minutes after reported on Saturday morning. But there's no point in having guards around the area there in the middle of the day. They want to be on the go at night, in dim hours in the morning. And I can't understand why these jeeps can be moved at night. They have to have lights to move them. Could they not put a helicopter in the sky and scoop over them 4 counties and maybe report to a Garda station that there's a jeep and a van travelling in such a direction could be checked out. It's not rocket science. You see them in England there tracking down fellas running through streets and that from helicopters, and the guards are able to come up after them. Another thing, to know where all these jeeps are going, they're going to the north, and it's not that big of a country, to say that you can't hide it. There must be a massive place to store all these jeeps, and they say they're breaking them down in parts as well and shipping them. Surely they're able to go in. Can they not go in and get those containers and suss out where they got all these parts that they're shipping and putting on boats? There's a lot of trailers being lifted here as well. My neighbour's trailer was taken off the jeep there in Canara Smart a fortnight ago in a brand new trailer, and we were talking to fellas there and they said those trailers are going into somewhere in Dublin where the guards are afraid to go into it. Why not get the army to go in and do a sweep on them, get a unit in the army and go in and clean them out? It's ridiculous, but there's no law or order in the whole thing at all, And in the last 2 years, in the space of about a mile from me, there's 4 or 5 jeeps after being lifted and 3 or 4 trailers, and there was a man's workshop up the road where he fixes chainsaws, and it was riddled as well. There has to be local knowledge as well, which they should be picking up these lads and investigating them,
Would that be something you'd mention to the candidates who are coming to your door?
Yeah, that'll be it, to see what they're going to do about that, Yeah.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much and good luck with all the hassle now in the coming days.
Okay, good luck, thanks.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Another aspect of relations between farmers and politicians is the management of local roads. We've been reporting on the dispute between landowners and Roscommon County Council on the replacement of some stolen gates. Farmers in South County Dublin too are unhappy about the council refusal to install cattle grids to control livestock movements. Irish Farmers Journal news correspondent Odile Evans reports.
I'm here with Donie Anderson, who is a farmer in the Dublin Mountains. And up in the Dublin Mountains you're having an issue now with cattle grids. Can you tell me a bit about that, please?
Yeah, we're it's livestock grids we're calling them now because it's to stop sheep, cattle and horses and anything that graze on the mountains. We graze commonage in the Dublin Mountains, which is part of South Dublin County Council's area, and because the roads run from the commonage down to the lower lands, in years gone by there was gates on the commonages to stop the stock from coming down. And then the gates were taken away possibly 40-50 years ago, but there was always enough people around to manage to keep the sheep and livestock on the hills. But as times change, there's not enough people around anymore. So we're basically looking for South Dublin County Council to install cattle grids on the public roads at where the commonage meets the fenced land, as we call it. And the County Council don't really want to do it.
And, without the gates as it is at the moment, what are the problems you're dealing with?
Sheep that are grazed on the hills, when they get a bit of fresh grass down the roadsides, they want to come down off the commonage. They don't really want to stay, so somebody has to be there a couple of times a day to keep them up on the hills, and it's just getting harder. So there's a good few people getting out of sheep and not putting them to the hill because of that reason, because it's harder to manage them.
This seems to be unique to Dublin. There are cattle grids on commonage roads elsewhere, aren't there?
Yeah, we have done a good bit of research. Through Tallaght Community Council, who are backing us on this, we have put together a 45-page document detailing cattle grids on roads in other parts of the country, like the Cummer Mountains and the Curragh in Kildare and Mount Leinster in Carlow, Wexford. More or less Carlow end of it, I think that they're on. and they're also on Clare Island, have put in cattle grids not too long ago. And the Cooley Mountains up in the Cooley Peninsula have got approval to put them in up there as well. So I don't see why South Dublin think we're so much different.
And what progress has been made, or do you think it'll happen?
Hopefully it'll happen. The council have agreed now to do kind of an audit on them. Their point is that they're not safe for cyclists and walkers and all. But when we were in with them on a deputation, and they said like the designs that we had weren't good enough. And as I said, none of us were architects, so it's up to them to use the best available technology to come up with whatever cattle grid design they want, which is effective.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Many of you already know Tommy Moyles for his column in our Farmer Rights section, but maybe not for his acting talent. My colleague, Aisling Hussey, interviewed him for this week's Irish Country Living about his involvement with Cork Drama Group, right in the middle of calving season.
The character I play is called Bobby Franklin, and he's as far away from my day job as you could ever imagine. Described as a flamboyant dressmaker.
Ducky, told you I get familiar. Finished your newspaper, did you?
Yes.
And what did you have for dessert? Reader's Digest?
I'm kind of thrown out of my comfort zone a bit, put it mildly. It's good fun at a challenging time of year, I suppose, in terms of the workload on the farm. I'd be a big person for believing that the farm is your job. It's not your every waking moment. I think the one thing that really made this possible for me to take this on was technology in the form of calving cameras. I would organise that I ring Dad when I'm leaving to give him an update on does a cow look like she's going to calf or not, and he can check them in his house, which is away from mine. It being the third year of the cameras, we have much more confidence in our cow's ability to calf on their own.
So you're a little bit less stressed out then when it comes to rehearsals and performances, or?
A little bit.
And you had twins born yesterday?
Or? We had twins born yesterday, yeah. I was saying to Dad, I said, there's nothing is calf now for 2 days, and I said, I can guarantee you they will decide to calf just as the rugby match kicks off or before I come here. And when I checked at the cameras at, when was it, maybe 2 o'clock or 2:30, things looked okay. And the phone call is Michael D was meeting the players from Dad saying, what time is the match at? Because there's one getting ready. So I just observed her, and she didn't do anything. She was expecting twins, so at half-time I went out and delivered as the first one is backwards, so I just got the second one then. And it was actually relaxing.
Really? And tell me a little bit about the play as well. You said there it's a farce.
Yeah, it's a farce. It's about a taxi driver from London called John Smith, and he's married to 2 different women in 2 flats that are about 5 minutes drive apart, and he's had an accident and he's been concussed, and the police have brought him home to one wife in the hospital while the other wife has rang our police station to try and find him, and it goes from there. And I suppose my own character has he's nearly in a world of his own completely.
Yeah.
He just flutters in and out. And
that's a good way to describe him, flutters.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Oh my God, he flutters. So it has been good fun. I'd be worried at times that Mum and Dad might see me in the calving cameras, like when I'm feeding, practicing his walk and stuff, and they might get worried. But no, my girlfriend's she's pretty good with it. It's a funny role.
Yeah.
It's a very funny role.
And I think it's a great outlet as well for people living in rural areas who mightn't be into, who might be a bit more creative. It's a good outlet for people maybe who are not into sport or going to the pub or something like that.
Yeah, big time.
Because there's a good sense of community there. There's a job for everyone, it seems, between painting or like making costumes or doing makeup or anything like that.
Big time. I'm extremely privileged to be involved with this group. This group won the RT All Ireland Drama Festival 3 years running a number of years ago, so the standard is pretty high. I like that. I like that challenge of having to, can I be accepted here? Am I good enough? It's a good way to push myself. I would have loved to have been great at sport. I wasn't. I was the type of person who I loved the misery of weight training and running and when I played GA, and then it used to be ruined when people bought footballs and hurleys into it. But I love that involvement. I think it's really important in agriculture, especially in the farming side of it, that you make the effort to get out of the house and socialise, because people won't come to you.
So I suppose anyone who is interested in seeing Tommy and he's fluttering around the stage can check out Kilmeen Drama Group on Facebook. Is that right?
Yeah, they're on Facebook and the website as well, the Kilmeen Drama Group. We have 5 more nights here in February. 26th to the 28th will be our main ones, I suppose, as we'll be straight into competition the week after. So the competition will involve around 7 different festivals.
Yeah.
So we'll be Wexford and Waterford our first weekend away. We've two festivals in Clare following weekend, followed by a night here on the Tuesday, and we're in Cavan and Galway to round it off, and then due to demand we're back here for 2 nights in late March, and hopefully at Loan.
Yeah.
That's the target. I'm almost similar. You'd be similar to a co-calf in some ways in the nerves. You'd have your routine, and then you're, I'm on in front of a crowd now in an hour or two's time, and I've nearly have to go into my own corner and in my own space and clear my head to get stuff ready because my English teacher gave up asking me quotes in school because I couldn't remember them.
Yeah.
I can't learn off the page. I have to hear it to think I'm doing this now with such a prestigious group. It shows you what's possible if you can find a way to do it.
You're a bit like the main character as well, I suppose, in a way. Tight schedule, double life.
Yeah, it is actually. Like, there is just no time for rest at the moment.
Yeah.
You grab it when you can. But look, this is enjoyable.
You're not a man for rest anyway, Tommy, so thanks a million.
No bother.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Finally, let's get some advice from Colin Crosby, a former gardener to the British royal family. He told Irish Country Living editor Mairead Lavery how to create a tiered garden for the late spring.
You're copying what you see naturally in a woodland. You've got trees, you've got shrubs in the middle, and then in the ground level you've got bulbs and perennials. And when you do that, rather than just having one-dimensional, everything that's between 6 and 12 inches high, you have the bulbs and the low-growing perennials. Then you've got some slightly taller shrubs. And if you put some beautiful trees in with bark, such as betulas or Acer Davidii, they bring you height, and they're almost like bringing statues into the garden. So you've got a garden and different layers, different interests, and by doing it, you also bring in little microclimates that allows you to grow a much wider range of plants.
And what would be your ideal tiering? So if you were to look at it for even the late spring garden, what would ideally be there?
If I was looking at the late spring garden, the trees that I would have in there would be trees firstly with interesting bark. So Betula utilis, Betula albus sinensis. I would go for Acer griseum, Prunus rufa. I would then maybe also look, so you've got the colour from the bark, then 1 or 2 small flowering trees, such as Magnolia stellata. And then you come down a level and you've got things such as Hamamelis, Intermedia pallida, with beautiful spidery yellow scented flowers, Daphne boluas that have got lovely pink, and then Sarcococca, a little shrub with tiny little insignificant flowers, but produces such a strong perfume. And not only is the Sarcococca a beautiful flowering shrub, it's got a lovely evergreen structure, so for 12 months of the year you have got interest which is coming, so you're looking in your garden to create year-round interest. By doing that in different tiers, and even in small gardens, it's possible to create that tiered effect.
My family say to me about my weed bed, I've just let the Dutch, the Welsh poppies, but also the pale pink, the cannabis poppies, I think they are, with lavender. And to see that in the summertime, the pinks and the pale blues of the lavender, it's just magical.
And I always say to people, if you walk through the countryside and you see the landscapes that you enjoy, they're always very much on different levels. You see different things. You see the movement of the grasses, the wildflowers that are coming in. You see colour combinations that people say you shouldn't do, but nature has them in the wild. So if nature can do it in the wild, why shouldn't we have those colour combinations? We're too keen in following rules, and I think everyone's garden's unique, and it's got to be what they want, what they can create in their garden.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for that advice.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.